Um, my name is Christo, and I'm part of the communications and knowledge sharing team at the African Circular Economy Network, or ASEN in short. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to this circular economy workshop entitled Fashion and Textiles in Africa. So for those that has not been introduced to ASEN before, I would like to take this opportunity to just give you a brief background of who we are and what we do exactly. So ASEN was established in 2016 as a non-profit company registered in South Africa. So ASEN now operates in 33 countries across Africa with over 100 experts in its network. ASEN's purpose is to build a restorative and circular economy for Africa that generates well-being and prosperity inclusive for all its people through new forms of economic production and consumption which maintain and regenerate its environmental resources. So this is achieved through research, knowledge sharing, networking, and capturing and reporting circular case studies. So our membership-based network brings together people from the private, public, and non-profit sectors who has the ambition to accelerate the just transition to a circular economy in Africa through collaboration and implementation of projects. So my colleague Laura will post a few links in the chat to give you more details of how to be a part of the network, how to keep up to date with our activities, and the different membership options that can be applied for at ASEN. So please have a look there for more info. So then one of the most recent achievements of ASEN is being invited to be the co-host for the World Circular Economy Forum that we are very excited about. So the World Circular Economy Forum is an annual global initiative of Finland through the Finnish Innovation Fund, Citra. The first forum in 2017 brought together a global audience to chart a course for a sustainable and resource-efficient economy. So this year, for the first time ever, the World Circular Economy will be held in Africa from 6 to 8 December, titled From Africa to the World. The forum will be held in Kigali, Rwanda, and online with global studios that can be arranged worldwide and specific African studios that will be organized by ASEN across Africa specifically. So alongside Citra and ASEN, this year's forum will be co-hosted by the African Circular Economy Alliance, the Republic of Rwanda, and other international partners. As you might have seen, today's workshop is an official side event of the forum. So this is the first one of a 5-part series that will follow the themes of ASEA's 5 big bets. So this includes fashion and textiles for today, food systems, electronics, packaging, and the built environment. So these workshops will be taking place in the next 5 months, leading up to the forum in December, and we will share details of these other workshops at a later stage. So the aim for today's workshop is to build momentum for the World Circular Economy Forum and to stimulate conversation specifically for circularity in textiles and fashion in Africa. So we'll do this by focusing on a few successful circular initiatives and talking through barriers to entry and opportunities that are available in this industry. So before I hand over to our moderator, Radia, I just want to go through a few housekeeping rules quickly for the session today. So please note the session is being recorded. So by staying online, you are consenting to being recorded. And then please also be active in the chat and the open discussion we will be having later on. Because at the end of the day, we're all here working towards the same goal, accelerating a transition to a circular economy. So the more we share and learn from each other, the better for us all. And then feel free to introduce yourself in the chat section and the organization that you represent so that we have an idea of who is with us in the room. And then at the end, a recording of the session and a summary document of learnings and conclusions will be shared. So at this point, I'd like to introduce you to ASEN's network coordinator, Radia, that will be moderating the session and facilitating the discussion with our panel going forward. So Radia is based in Lusaka, Zambia. She holds a bachelor's and honors in economics. She's passionate about the role that circular economy can play in future sustainable development. Radia has made significant impact in the industry by co-founding Ulubutu Recycling Initiative and being a judge at the Afri Plastics Challenge. Her role at ASEAN includes building networks and partnerships with global and local organizations, and while supporting the transition to a circular economy in Africa. So Radia, the floor is all yours. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the session. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Christo, and good afternoon, and welcome once again to everyone. I am excited, as I hope you are, to be moderating this session on a very important topic for not only Africa, but the world. And before we begin, I'd like to run us through today's agenda, which can also see being projected on the screen before you. So we're going to have, as Christo mentioned in the beginning, this is an interactive session. So we'll have a panel discussion and introduction with a wide range of experts in the circular and fashion and textile industry with us. And then we'll promptly go into Q&A. We were supposed to have a case study, and I think we'll have that either at the end of this session. If not, I think we can still share relevant information in the post-program document. All right, so to kick us off, I think the fashion and textile industry, by a combination of a lot of definitions, can be summarized as the development, production, manufacturing, and distribution of raw materials that are subsequently used to create and distribute products that contain fabric, all right? But much like everything else in the linear economy right now, the fashion and textile industry operates on a take, make, and waste model. This is such a problem because it has led to a 20% of global water waste. 73% of the material going into the clothing system is lost. And I think, as all of us know, in Africa, a lot of poor quality material that is discarded wherever it's produced is baled and sold in Africa. What happens to this poor quality material that ends up in Africa, if it can't be sold, it ends up in landfills or is burnt and discarded. Looking at these statistics, I think we can all tell that this is a growing and rising problem. And that's why, again, I am so excited to be part of this panel discussion with all these different experts that are actively promoting circularity in the fashion and textile industry, because I feel this is a problem that needs immediate and effective action. So to start us off, before we go into the panel discussion, I would like to briefly introduce our panelists, introduce them, and then give them the floor to introduce themselves. One of our panelists today is Mr. Josephat Masiagi from Kenya. He's also from the Moi University. Welcome, Mr. Josephat, and if you could kindly introduce yourself in less than a minute.
Thank you, Radia. My name is Josephat Igadwa Masiagi, as you've been told. I work as an associate professor at Moi University, and I also work as the principal investigator of the UNEP INTEX project, which is looking into circularity and sustainability in the textile and apparel value chain in Kenya. This is a project that's being done both in Kenya, South Africa, and Tunisia. So I coordinate the Kenyan part of that study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Josephat. We look forward to a fruitful discussion today. Our next panelist is Michelle Goddard. She's actually one of our chapter members from South Africa. She's a chapter member for the African Circular Economy Network, but she's also a clothing and industry professional. Welcome, Michelle, and kindly introduce you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so as Roddy said, I am a South African lead support for ACE in South Africa. But also, yeah, I've have more than 30 years experience within the clothing and textile industry, including 17 years in fashion retail. And I suppose I have quite a holistic view of the value chain, given that I've worked in various roles. I left corporate in 2021, and I'm now an independent research consultant and trainer, focusing on sustainability and responsible sourcing.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We'll move on to our next panelist. Tracy Gilmore is the co-founder of the Clothing Bank in South Africa. Welcome, Tracy, and please introduce yourself to the participants. Thank you.
You're on mute, Tracy.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for the invite. And yes, I'm the co-founder of an organization based in South Africa called the Clothing Bank. And our focus has always been on helping unemployed South Africans to find opportunities for them to start small businesses. And we partner with all the major retailers who donate all their excess surplus stock to us. And we use that stock as an income generating component of the 2-year training program that we operate. So it's been a great journey and a big learning experience. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, and we are happy to have you. Our next panelist is Ms. Preeti Ndlovu. She is a social entrepreneur and the founder of Slow Textiles and also the co-founder of Vitusuo. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Welcome, Preeti, and kindly introduce yourself.
Preeti, I think you're on mute.
Okay, I think while Preeti, she may be having some technical difficulties. I think while we sort that out, I'll move on to Alex Musembi. He's the general manager for Africa Collect Textiles. He's also from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome, Alex, and kindly introduce yourself to everyone.
Thank you so much for this invitation. My name is Alex Musembi. I'm one of the co-founders of Africa Collect Textiles, and I'm also the general manager for the organization. Thank you very much for this invitation.
And thank you for honoring the invitation. We're very happy to have you. I will move on to Elma Struma, who is the founder of Africa Collect and works with Alex Musembi. Welcome, Elma, and kindly introduce.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. I work with Alex Musembi. I'm also one of the founders of Africa Collect Textiles. We collect used textiles and uniforms and textile waste. We sort them and we recycle them as good as we can. So we started in Kenya, and last year we have also started the program in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we're honored to have you. I'm not sure, Preeti, if you're back online. Oh, all right, I think Preeti is still having. Okay. I think Pretty is still having a few technical difficulties. We'll see how we can support to get that sorted out. To continue the program, we actually have our case study for today. We have, it's good to hear about circularity and good to hear about people that are doing the actual work, but we have a tangible example of a company that's promoting circularity right here in Africa. Rewoven is a South African innovation project which aims to bridge the gap between sustainability and fashion. And Esetu from Rewoven is here to share her story and to highlight how circularity can be achieved within the fashion and textile industry. Welcome, Esetu. Kindly introduce yourself and take us through Rewoven's story.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for that introduction. And then good afternoon to the audience today that is joining us for this session. I'm unable to share my screen. Sorry, can I please be assisted with that so I can share this presentation? But as has been mentioned already, my name is Esetu. I am the co-founder, one of the co-founders of Rewoven. I'm also the CEO of Rewoven. And Rewoven is a startup. We are in the early stage, particularly in the seed stage. And we've been operational for 2 years. And Rewoven is in the business of textile waste management and textile waste recycling. And we're currently based in South Africa. As we all know, I think everyone in this room is a circularity or circular economy expert, and we're particularly focusing on fashion and textiles. And I think we all know in this room that when it comes to waste, the fashion industry is quite problematic. And so this is the information that's gotten us passionate about the work that we're doing. Obviously, when we're looking at the global picture, we know that the picture is pretty bleak. We know that the stats that are given by Ellen MacArthur Foundation is that about every second, the equivalent of a rubbish truckload full of garments is burnt and landfilled, in every second, which is quite alarming. But for us as an African startup, we're quite passionate about solving the African problem. And so while the global picture is pretty bleak, we became very interested in understanding what was happening in our own continent. And what we found was even more alarming than the global picture. I think when it comes to the conversation of sustainable fashion, when it comes to the conversation of circular economy, often Africa is left out of that conversation. And even when it comes to solutions, when it comes to sustainable fashion, a lot of the solutions aren't targeted towards Africa because Africa is seen as maybe irrelevant in the conversation. When we're looking at the data, and obviously when it comes to data and waste, we don't have a lot of it, but the African picture is quite scary, particularly because of the amount of clothing donations, the global clothing donations that come from the West, often EU and the US. 70% of those global clothing donations end up in Africa, and it creates a problem for African countries. And as we see on this slide, in countries such as Ghana, I know the picture is the same in East Africa, Rwanda, Nairobi, Tanzania, etc. You're finding that in Accra, 15 million items of garments are entering Accra a week, which is quite alarming. But we're focused on the South African problem for now. But we do plan to kind of scale and solve the African problem, which is becoming quite a big one. But when we're zooming in on the South African context, we're seeing that in our own landfills, there's about 3 million tons of textile waste, which is the equivalent of about 6.5% of total waste. And these figures aren't 100%. This is just the figures that we have from our solid waste management authorities. So that's the problem we're trying to solve, the problem of textile waste on the African continent, and particularly starting in South Africa, but also then afterwards, we want to have a scalable solution that we can replicate in other African countries. So where we are now is zooming into the problem of textile waste in South Africa. And a lot of what we're zooming into in terms of the problem is the pre-consumer textile waste. So between 10 to 20% of fabric is wasted in the clothing production process, which is quite alarming given that in South Africa we have about 306 clothing manufacturers still in operation. In addition to all of this production clothing waste that's going to landfill, which is essentially clean fabric, off-cut fabric, which could be used. We're finding that South Africa is also moving quite aggressively towards diverting waste from landfill, particularly in certain provinces, such as in the Western Cape. And so in the province that we're operating in the Western Cape, where the city of Cape Town is in, you're finding that landfill fees are increasing. They've been increasing annually. In fact, certain landfills have even been closed. So this is putting a lot of pressure now on the clothing industry, particularly clothing manufacturers, to find a different disposal option. So landfill is no longer becoming that option for our local market. And then when it comes to clothing retailers, a lot of them already have set quite stringent goals for themselves to try and reach zero waste to landfill by between 2025 to about 2030. And so this is kind of the space that we find ourselves in South Africa that we want to kind of find a solution for. When we're looking at the sources of textile waste in South Africa that Rewoven is mostly working with, as we've mentioned, we work primarily with pre-consumer textile waste. So there's a lot of clothing manufacturers in South Africa. There's about 306 operating in the country, about half of them in the Western Cape, a significant amount of them in another province called KwaZulu-Natal, and then the rest are dispersed around Gauteng and in other smaller provinces. But this is a major source of textile waste in the South African context. We also have hotels that are not on this slide. We also have hospitals, which we are also engaging in kind of working with the textile waste problem. In South Africa, we have 400 public hospitals and 200 private hospitals, all of which are generating textile waste in the form of bed sheets, pillowcases, scrubs, towels, which have been discarded or worn out, and they don't have a solution for their disposal. And then lastly, so I spoke about the problem of textile waste in a lot of the other African countries as it pertains to the secondhand garments which are being donated. We have a similar problem in South Africa, but it's slightly different. So we have a big problem of secondhand garments being exported to South Africa, which are being seized by the SARS. And also there's a lot of counterfeit or illegal garments which SARS seizes and doesn't allow for those garments to enter the country. This is quite a lot of textile waste, about millions of tons of textile waste that SARS is capturing and is not allowing to enter the South African market. However, SARS does need to find a solution for that textile waste. Currently, a small portion of it is being recycled and the rest of it is being incinerated. And so we can see that there's a real big need for a solution for textile waste in South Africa. And so I say all of this to just show the magnitude of the problem on the African continent. Obviously, we're in South Africa right now, but there's a lot of opportunity and there's a big problem in other countries in the African continent. So with that said, we would like to propose a solution, and that's why Rewoven exists, and so the space in which we hope to innovate in. And that is, we want to find a way to divert all of this textile waste from landfill. And so finding a way to collect it from source, ensuring that it doesn't even go to landfill, and then having that textile waste come into Rewoven, being sorted into the right fabric types, and then have that being recycled into fiber. Once it's been recycled into fiber, have that being produced, have that be made into recycled products, and then have that cycle be replicable. And that is what we are on a journey to kind of develop locally in South Africa. One of the main reasons as well that we started our business is for the labor and the employment opportunities that we see in the recycling space. And we also see similar opportunities in the textile recycling space, particularly in the collection and the sorting phase. And that's something that we are quite passionate about, is ensuring that we create jobs in clothing, in collecting and sorting. And we also see an opportunity there to leverage technology to kind of scale up the amount of jobs that we're able to create in that phase. So currently where we are in all of this, so we have been operational, as I've mentioned, since 2020. And a lot of the work that we've been doing in the South African context is, and we have a very phased approach. So where we've started now in the last 2 years is to ensure that we understand the sources of textile waste in South Africa, ensure that we creating reliable and consistent supply of that textile waste. So a lot of our business for the past 2 years has been collecting textile waste, sorting it, and then facilitating that into recycling loops where certain products like dog beds, filling material for upholstery, carpet underlays, disaster relief blankets are made, or like downcycled products are being made. So that's the current phase of the business. Now we're kind of, after those 2 years and understanding kind of those key market factors of supply of textile waste and so forth, we're kind of ready to kind of grow the business now to be able to make that into fiber and to make recycled products. So currently, as Rewoven, we're collecting a lot of the textile waste and we're selling it to other textile waste processors in the South African environment who are making the products that I've mentioned. And then now the next 2-year journey for us is to in-source that process ourselves and then to create recycled products such as recycled fabric, recycled yarn, recycled apparel accessories, recycled homeware, as well as recycled footwear and other products. And so that's the exciting journey that we've been on. Yeah, that's all I'll say on that, because it's pretty exciting, the work that we're doing on that front. So since we've been operational since 2 years ago, we've diverted about 460,000 kilograms of textile waste from landfill. Next month, we actually would have reached the 500,000 kilogram mark in August of the amount of textile waste that would have been diverted from landfill just in the Western Cape. We currently employ 7. And these are just some of our clients. So we've got one of our biggest clients is a local clothing retailer who are partnered with TFG. And then that's just some of the other CMTs, but we have a lot more other clients in addition to those. Then I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just kind of explain some of the key service offerings or products that we have. So as you mentioned, currently we have a textile waste disposal service that we're collecting. We allow clients to drop off as well. Also have an on-site sorting service. Also have a debranding service where we help organizations get rid sustainably and ethically of their branded garments. We retail textile waste to textile waste processors, as I've mentioned. We're currently retailing 100% recycled fabric. In the future, we want to in-house the production of this fabric, as well as the production of the recycled fiber, which we're currently selling as well, but we're outsourcing. We want to in-source that in the next 2 years, as well as the sale of a recycled product. Is what we want to be venturing into. And ultimately, the vision of Rewoven is to help clients realize 1, zero textile waste to landfill. 2, we also want to help clients be able to do this in the most cost-effective way, given the market. So relative to landfill, relative to other companies and other players in the market. Currently, because of the way the market is set, we're not able to provide clients with the rebate, but as soon as the company grows and we're able to create and in-house that production process of the recycled fibers, will then be an additional value for clients in that they'll be able to earn a rebate for their textile waste that they've given us to recycle. We also want to be able to help clients monitor their sustainability goals. We recently want to partner and enhance our data communication and for reporting. So currently we do have a waste report that we give to clients, and there we just help clients track the amount of waste, what is happening with the waste, and also ensure traceability. So what products are being made of, from that textile waste, and to just help clients be able to legitimately report on their sustainability and recycling goals. And then the last big vision, as I've mentioned, is to help clients become circular, fully circular. So what we want to be able to do as Rewoven is to take your textile waste and then to integrate it back into your supply chain, and to make you as an organization fully circular, whether you're in the clothing industry or not. For instance, this morning I was speaking to a hospital, and there, for instance, what could be interesting is taking their textile waste and making it into uniforms that the doctors are wearing, and then we able to collect that at the end of its life cycle, recycle it, and then it goes back into the client's supply chain. And then this is just our team, our young team. Currently, as I've mentioned, there's 7 of us. I'm led I lead the company alongside my co-founder and CEO. We have a very experienced advisory board who helps us kind of with the work that we do. And then we currently have 4 team members on site who are part of our recycling team who do all of the collections and the baling and the sorting. But this number will most certainly grow this year. So even this year, we're expecting quite a number of growth in moving that number of employees from 7 to 10, 11, some of the projections that we were speaking about today. So yeah, that's a little bit on Rewoven and the work that we do. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm sure you can put them in the chat box, or I'll handle them afterwards. But thank you so much for the opportunity to present the work that we do.
Thank you so much, Esther. I am happy to see that as big as the problem is, there are actually people who are ready to tackle it. I'm also happy to see that it's a young workforce. I think we are responsible and will need to be involved as much as we can to tackle this problem, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to remain with the environment and the one earth that we have. And so it's important that we play an active role in maintaining and keeping our environment. You mentioned a few things in there that I think one of our panelists, Elma, might be able to touch on. Elma, if I can come to you, circularity is a continuous process and requires continuous improvement, right? And I feel like there are some similarities with Eseto's business and yours. What are some of the things that you have done or had to consider to set up Africa Collect, and what are some of the challenges that you have faced as a business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So thank you. Yes, first of all, like our business is indeed similar. We focus a bit more on post-consumer waste or used textiles. One of the reasons why there is so many waste tossed into the river and ending up in the ocean, and you see them in the streets, is because of the dependency on secondhand clothes from the global north. The dependency on the demand for affordable clothing, and that is a reason why the global north can send so much waste. It's first of all, it's their waste. Everything is for them waste, but it's B quality, so it's medium quality plus a lot of unsellable items, but also items with a lot of stains, and they're basically waste upon arrival. And I think some people did research on that. It's like about 30 or 40% is already waste. It's unsellable. That is one of the reasons why that is possible, is because of the dependency on secondhand clothes, or on this cheap of affordable materials. And one of our goals is to create a local secondhand system. So we collect used clothes locally in Nairobi, but also outside Nairobi and in Lagos. There are enough people that grew out of their clothes, or they don't want to wear them anymore, or like children grow, or people get big and then slim. So there's a lot of clothes also locally available, and that is something that we would like to collect and forward to reduce that dependency, so that we can limit this importation of the global north, and don't allow them to send so much waste with it. Yeah, then also we look at uniforms. The nice thing about uniforms is that they are all the same materials and the same color. So that is very interesting waste streams for recycling. The challenge with post-consumer waste is that it is a lot of mixed stuff. It's very difficult to recycle that into something useful. And also, yeah, we look at denim, also cotton and kitenge, Ankara kind of materials that can still be upcycled. So we do a lot of things by hand, and we will always do that. So we make rugs out of that, and backpacks, and so a lot of like manual upcycling. But there's a limit in how many kilos you can process in such a way, because the amount, the kilos that are available is like it's millions. So also we would like to set up some recycling machinery so that we can process these materials locally in filling, insulation, and eventually fiber recovery. So that we can have the fibers back, so that we can respin them again or mix them with virgin fibers to make new yarn and really recycled fabrics. So there's a lot of similarities. We also look a bit less than Rewoven, I think, at offcuts from the factory. The nice thing about offcuts is also that it's clear what it is. So there you can sort of expect what is coming. So yeah, so there are definitely many different waste streams that all need a bit of their own approach. Yeah, Africa Collect Textiles is our model is derived. It's but fully contextualized, but it's derived from the collection models in Western Europe or in the States. We have collection points where people can drop off their used clothing, and we have a pickup service as well. And what we collect, about half of it is still wearable, and that is flowing back to the markets. People can, and it's much more affordable, of course, than imported second-hand clothes. So it's a huge opportunity. Also, there we can grow much bigger. But the next step would definitely be processing non-wearable items into something like semi-finished products like filling or insulation materials.
Okay, thank you, Elmer. I think I'll jump to maybe Alex, since you're in the same organization. I'd like to hone in on some of the challenges, specific challenges that you faced trying to introduce circularity to a business, some of the challenges that a circular entrepreneur is likely to face in Africa, if somebody wanted to jump into that business.
Yeah, definitely. Business comes up in different angles, and especially in these competitive and uncertain kind of what we call circularity. Yeah. So there's a lot of things, especially people need to consider apart from just a basic plan. For instance, you need to check your numbers, for example, your financial model. And here I mean all kinds of assumptions, whether it's the cost assumption, the revenue assumption, the P and the profit and loss kind of assumption, your cash flows. You need to check your depreciation and amortization. The reason why I'm saying this, you can have a good story, but again, if the numbers doesn't make sense, it becomes very difficult for you or for anyone to really influence or to support you into the business. Yeah. Another point about the branding, that has to be a key element. You don't form a business because you think is viable in the market. You really need to check your branding colors, your element, what you believe in, your mission. Clearly you must have what we call the roadmap. Yeah. So all these are basics that any entrepreneur, any person really need to consider before they come into the business. But more importantly, having also a mentor who can really critique and guide you or guide a person to really shape your thinking and thought becomes very crucial. So everyone, even including us who we in that process, we all need mentors to really take us into another level, and to have some time from time to time to discuss our roadmap and where we want to move. So and above all, the awareness. Yeah, we need to check this marketing bit. So despite the fact you can have, for example, the financial kind of support, but we also realize as part of the business, if we also don't invest much in time and money for awareness, that becomes a very key weakness. So people need to understand your business. People need to buy your idea and why you are existing. Yeah, thank you.
I like that very much. Thank you very much, Alex. I like that in that, yes, we are trying to tackle this problem that has a social aspect to it. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, it has to make business sense. You can't only sell your story, you have to have a solid plan on how you tackle this problem. Speaking to that point, Mr. Joseph, do you think circularity is something that African businesses will take up voluntarily? And do you think in Africa there is a lack of willingness to invest in improved processes, a lack of willingness to invest in knowledge surrounding especially fashion and textiles? Is this something that that you think could be uptaken within Africa?
Thank you very much. Circularity is a tricky issue in that the current machines we have and technology have been optimized to work with virgin fiber. That means everything is set and it is cheaper to get cotton from the farm and work with it. When we talk of circularity, if I just give an example, when you want to work with a recovered fiber, for example, cotton, this cotton will be much more shorter than the one that is coming from the farm. So we need to rethink the whole process. We need to rethink the whole design process, and that is expensive. Therefore, circularity will not come automatically, because if I own a textile factory, it will be cheaper for me to buy the cotton and I will run it very fast and I'll be able to produce my yarn, go on to my fabric, so on and so forth. But this is when we look at it from an economic point of view as a company. But when we look at it from a global point of view, we come up with another aspect, which is social and environmental. Because if we do not recycle the fiber that is already used in the fabric, this material is going to end up in the landfill, or this material is going to be incinerated. And this is another problem. It may not cost me now directly, but it will cost me in one way or another: greenhouse gases, pollution of the water system, so on and so forth. Therefore, looking at it at a holistic point of view, we may have to come to a point whereby, as citizens of the global world, we need to start thinking globally and not regionally and not personally. Therefore, we may have to look into an issue whereby companies have a holistic view rather than an individualistic view, whereby they view it from their point of view. We hear of the West, which is sending most of their unusable material and finding it much more cheaper to dump it into Africa. Well, there are so many theories about it, but one of the easiest things is that they feel it has escaped their region, so they are safe. The unfortunate bit is that they are no longer safe, because this material will still end up as greenhouse gases, or it will affect the environment in one way or another. We live in a global village. Therefore, we need to sit down and see whether we can have globally acceptable, whereby we say that companies that make fabric, companies that make garments, they should have some level of responsibility. It's not just a matter of rushing in. You make jeans and you sell them very expensively and you run all the way to the bank. You must sit down and ask yourself, after that jeans has been used, what happens to the jeans? You may be in China, you may be in Kenya, you may be in maybe Mexico. That jeans maybe was used in South Africa, maybe in Pakistan. Will it affect the water system in Pakistan? Will it affect the water system in Zambia? Those are the kind of questions which, when we start asking ourselves, it will be very important for us as a global citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like the idea of us thinking, yes, we're trying to tackle fashion and textiles in Africa, but to also think about the spillover effects. If this is something that we're not willing to work on, it's going to affect everybody in the long run. There was a bit of, you spoke on being accountable when a garment is made, and I'm hearing regulation and policymakers might be involved in there. Tracy, I'll come to you. How do you think policymakers and regulators can get involved in the circularity, promoting circularity within Africa? What are some of their ideas, or what do you think? What would be the best next step for regulators and policymakers to be involved?
Yes, so I would say that's not possibly my strength, but I do understand the importance of creating the circular future is nice and open, but yes, we need to understand the landscape. So it's important to know where we fit within that and who are the players in the industry, what the policies are, and things like the extended producer responsibilities. Where do we fit within that, and how can we collaborate on that? Because I think it's very important to be inclusive with this. And often policies are made without including everybody. And if we think about Kate Raworth and her approach to donut economics and how a household is at the core of our economy, often the household gets overlooked in these conversations. And how do we start to build all those relationships and build that in? So I mean, collaboration is absolutely key to making a massive change. And we've been very successful in building these strong partnerships because we've had shared visions and shared values. And working and collaboratively, we've seen massive impact happening. But we've got to obviously all be on the same page. And understanding that landscape is very important. And in South Africa, I think because of our broad-based Black economic empowerment scorecard that the corporates need to adhere to, it has cracked us into consciousness of being aware of lots of different things. And I think that's very important, is for us to understand the context, but to also see the bigger picture. And that's really key to making things work strongly. Yes. So it's being inclusive is very important, and building this regenerative economy is something that we've all got to focus on. But obviously our kind of strategy and our mission has always been very much on focusing on vulnerable communities that have so much potential. And you just see massive change happening, and you see real things, real impact happening, people's lives transforming, because yes, as I said, the household is at the core of our economy, and there's so much huge potential there.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm hearing there that one of the challenges is the lack of inclusivity. Is it that the terms around circularity are not contextualized to a Zambian or a South African or a Kenyan? What does inclusivity mean in this particular context?
So I think that the beauty of building these networks is great, because now we're all having conversations across the globe, which is fantastic. And the other thing that I find about inclusivity is that we often overlook that for decades, people in lower income communities have been repurposing products, and they've got amazing ideas happening there. And now this conversation is happening at another level, but we mustn't overlook what actually is happening. We've got to keep that in mind, that we've got to continue to support these communities. So I'm quite passionate about that, because people have been repurposing plastic and all kinds of waste for decades. And it's something we've got to keep in mind.
Speaking to that point, I'm not a big expert on fashion and textiles and circularity as much as everybody on this panel is, but I feel like circularity in the fashion and textiles industry has been happening within Africa, and maybe we're not recognizing it. The second-hand clothing, at the time, I think when it started, in Zambia, we call it salaula. I think is a component of circular economy. I'm coming to you, Michelle. Do you think there are initiatives already happening in the circular economy with regards to fashion and textiles, but it's not being labeled as such? You're on mute, Michelle.
Sorry, let's start again. Yes. So yes, so yeah, we're not necessarily labeling things as circular, but I'm not sure that it's necessarily an issue. To Tracy's point, I think context is probably more important, and what's important for a circular economy practitioner in Europe might have a different focus to one in Africa, where it's more about alleviating poverty and job creation, whereas in Europe it might be more about creating efficiencies in a process. So, you know, in preparation for this workshop, I mean, there were two examples that I came across, one being Belgatech, so I'm not sure if they're on this webinar, but then there's also another great denim mill called Denim Delil in Mauritius, who have got their own reuse model of taking production offcuts directly as production inputs. And I suppose it got me thinking about, is that maybe the concept of waste is something that we all understand. And I know we don't like to use that term when we're talking about circular economy, but really it's something it's about revaluing waste as an input, or revaluing it as something else. That maybe that's something that people can get behind, be it waste of time, energy, you know, resources, rather than having to take a purist view and labeling something circular.
Thank you very much, Michelle. This is an open question. Do we think circularity in the fashion and textile industry is profitable? Is it something that, so a lot of businesses that usually have a social cause, or social entrepreneurships usually suffer from not being profitable and falling a lot into the NGO space. So is it something that we feel is profitable, and how can one achieve that, and what are some of the things they should look out for? Because in Africa, I know that a lot of businesses, or when somebody starts a business or gets into something, it should make business sense for it to be sustainable. And so, yeah, how is it profitable, and how does somebody get into that? This is an open question to the.
Maybe I can give it a shot.
Yes,
I think
please,
short answer is no, because I think fashion in general, at least how the big brands are looking at it, fashion is about creating something new, competing with other people, with other brands, making something for the next season, making something for the summer and the winter, being different, having a different feel, having different texture. So this constantly coming up with something new is very bad for circularity, because you need to have a reliable waste streams at the end. You don't want to constantly adjust your factory to a changing trend. So there's a bit of a mismatch there, or like a bit of a contradiction, that also the fashion designers are like, if you work for a big brand, then your task is to come up with something that no one else has done. It's like something completely new. And so you have a certain choices, like designing is about making choices. It's a red, and it has to be airy, or it has to be comfortable. The design criteria, it has to be recyclable at the end, is on the bottom of that list. That is, in most brands do not have that in mind. If they would, then everything would be 100% cotton. We would have like modular like buttons. We would have standardized zippers and things like that, or like clothes that would easily fall apart. So the problem is that there is a bit of a contradiction what fashion is, like being always new, and competing with other brands to stay on top of your game, and circularity. So that, of course, there are very good examples of brands that sort of like do not want to participate in that game, like for example Mud Jeans, that's like a jeans company. They don't use lycra, or like they don't use any stretch in it, so that it is easier for them to recycle. Also, they have a service, like every product needs a service of selling and of returning or repairing, or like, so the end of life of a product is in most cases not considered, or it's not the problem of a fashion brand, and that is something that needs to change. And if you would like to set up your own fashion brand, and which is truly circular, then you need to consider the end of life and also expect the items to come back to you. That's why we need collection and sorting so desperately, because these materials should never end up in the river, because then it is not waste anymore. It's pollution. It's gone, and then nobody's going to dig up these materials to make something out of it, because it is not possible. It's not even it's financially not feasible to do soil remediation or nature restoration and dredging out rivers to get these materials back to create a product out of that is compatible, or like that can compete with newly made items. So that, yeah, but the biggest challenge is that the design criteria, design for recycling, or like it should be recycled at the end of its life, that is not on the top of mind, and that is like new brands should rethink that.
I don't know whether I can add something.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Circularity is profitable. It's only that researchers have not been so keen on it. But before we forget, circularity has been there, especially for acrylic. Most of the sweaters you wear, actually we have machines which are even 30 years old that have been doing circularity. Without contradiction, I can quote examples of factories, and I've been to some of them, and they're happy with the business they do. Kenit, for example, in Kenya, they will buy second-hand sweaters. They rip them off, and they get fibers, and those fibers are used for making blankets. This technology has been with us for so long, and it is going on. This is a well-known business model. So in my view, it's a matter of researchers looking at it, because for a long time, somebody realized that to make new acrylic fiber is very expensive. It is cheaper to circulate the fiber that you have there. So what they do, they use maybe something close to 40% recycled fiber and 60% virgin fiber. So that is already circularity. Wool also, there are a lot of areas where it is done, and that yarn is used for carpets. Turkey is a very good example of how this has been happening for a long time. Now, for cotton, for some strange reasons, nobody followed that way, maybe because people felt it was much more cheaper to grow cotton, or maybe there were a lot of other interests that kept that away from the research. So it's just a matter of us realizing that it is necessary for us. And I think if we look at it from another point of view, that we need not throw these materials to the dump sites or maybe ban them, we will start working on it. Otherwise, technology is there. We have technology already. We have machines. You can check machines in maybe Spain or let's say Italy that are able to recover fiber, cotton fiber from shirts and from jeans. So that, and already, because there's a rumor that maybe EU might be coming up with very stringent rules about recycled material, I can confirm here that there are companies that are already producing jeans that are having something close to 20% recycled cotton. So it's just a matter of consumers being aware of what is happening and stating that I need you to recycle your material. And people will quickly go to the lab and they'll come up with very interesting products. So it is profitable. It's only that we need to have consumer awareness, and we need to have the global citizens stating what they need to do. Thank you. Sorry, I lost power, but I think it has come back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think one of the, from everything I'm hearing here is that a lot of the problems we're having, especially in the fashion and textile industry, is that we're tackling an issue that started elsewhere, right? We're dealing with a problem that somebody in a different region and continent started. Do we have the kind of infrastructure within Africa to be our own producers, of, especially if we're looking at the producing things with the end life of that particular fabric in mind? do we have that kind of infrastructure in Africa to be able to do this? And if not, who are the people that we should be engaging and talking to, and what are some of the things we should be doing to push this agenda? I think I will direct this to Elma again, and it's also an open question to the panel.
Yeah, well, thank you for pointing out me for this question, but definitely I can say something about it. And I do think one of the reasons also why we are in Kenya and in Nigeria is because all the steps are available. There's at least in East Africa, there's a lot of cotton production. There are spinners and mills, and there are fashion brands. And if you look at my country, the Netherlands, we don't produce anything, and so everything is imported. And then we try to push out the waste as quick as we can. So in terms of what ingredients you require for having a closed loop recycling, Kenya is much more advanced than many other countries. And I think the likeliness of having a circular economy for textiles is actually pretty big, because you know where the fibers are coming from, and you know also what to do or how to recover the fibers if you want to put them back into the system and mix them with the virgin fibers. So this knowledge is already there. So technically, yeah, garments can be made in the region and can be recycled also in the region. The only step that is missing is the collection and the sorting and the recovery of the fibers. But all the other steps are available, and that if you compare that with other regions on the planet, it's actually quite a lot. So I'm very positive that you will reach like closed loop recycling quicker than many European countries.
That is very reassuring to hear. Michelle, I see your hand is up. We can go to you before we go into our Q&A session.
Sorry, yes, I just wanted to add to Elma's point. So I think the situation we find ourselves is, yes, Kenya or Africa or many African countries, they have a lot of stock of the raw material required for recycling, but maybe the technical skills sit elsewhere. So, you know, especially when it comes to fabric technology and those kind of skills, they don't necessarily exist in Africa, but they might exist in Europe. So I think that's the situation we find ourselves with. The skills sit in one place, but the stock sits elsewhere. And how do we build the capacity and the technical knowledge in the same place where the waste exists? And I think there was also a point noted in the chat around the fact that there is no existing waste management systems in African countries. So that talks to Alma's point about the collection. So it's I think the framework is there, but it needs some polishing.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I agree on the capacity building. I mean, it's all right to share this knowledge between experts and people who know something about the circular economy and fashion and textiles, but the problem is much bigger than just us. There are people, there are everyday people who are actively contributing to this problem, and I agree that we need to find ways to communicate this, to communicate these things we're discussing amongst ourselves with the everyday person that actually contributes to the pollution that's caused by the fashion and textile industry. Thank you very much, everyone. We have quite a few questions that have come, and I am conscious of time, so we'll go straight into our Q&A session unless any one of our panels has something to add. Okay, it looks like there are no additions to our current discussion. We'll jump straight into our Q&A session. There's a question for Mr. Josephat. Where should we put more effort? Somebody asks, where should we put more effort? Design for circularity or recycling? And in their opinion, they think design is a good approach, and it could help eliminate waste in the first place, to help design garments which are made to last longer. Also, investing in exploring new fibers that are more organic can help with the textile resource management. So I think the question there is, where should the effort be put? Design for circularity or green? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Whichever way we take it, we still have to look at it from both angles. The design is part of it, and even recycling is part of it. Because even if you design it very well, in the end, after maybe 2 years or 5 years, even if it goes for 20 years, it still has to be recycled. So maybe for a start, because somehow some fibers or
Have we lost Josephat? Hello, am I offline or did we lose Josephat?
We can hear you, Radia.
Krista, are you there?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, okay, good. All right, thank you. I thought I had dropped off the call. Thank you very much. So this is a question for all the panelists, and anyone can take it. Is recycling fabrics really more expensive than producing new fabric?
If you would ask, okay.
Yep.
Sorry. Okay,
Alma, you can go, and then Michelle, you can go next. Yes.
Okay, maybe I can keep it short. So yeah, all the processes that on this planet are now tailored to processing new materials into new garments. So also when you are recycling, you need to collect it first, you need to sort it, and then you need to cut it apart, like the lining and the zippers and the buttons. So before you have fibers that you can use, there's a lot of steps. And it is also unreliable because you don't, like most materials, most garments are mixed. So if you would like to have cotton back, you can only use 100% cotton t-shirts or offcuts. So it's very challenging to recover those materials, and it becomes very quickly very costly, because like just collecting and sorting, you are already on 20, 30, 40 cents per kilo. And then you need to cut it up and take out buttons and zippers and fiberize it. So it becomes very quickly €1 or two, maybe 120 or 150 euro. And then you have an unreliable waste stream. So it's much easier and therefore also cheaper to pick newly made cotton. So that is a huge problem, and that's why it needs to be supported by the government, and there needs to be a waste tax to sort of like to facilitate this, because otherwise it is very, very challenging to compete with newly grown cotton.
Thank you, Elma. Michelle, you had a point on that as well?
So I disagree. So my understanding is that recycled cotton is actually cheaper. First of all, there's no dye stuff involved, there's less water involved, there's less energy involved, and it's therefore cheaper than virgin cotton. And I understand there's the quality issues, and that one has to still combine it with virgin cotton, should I say, from a quality perspective, and the limitations. But overall, my understanding is that it's cheaper.
Okay, that is very good news, first of all. But is it like post-consumer waste, or is it offcuts that has been then recycled? Do you know?
Post-consumer
Okay.
waste is my understanding.
Okay, and okay, that's great then. I mean, I think it's also about the volumes. Like it becomes more and more affordable once you have the volumes available. So also that's why we need collection and sorting on a large scale, because bigger volumes make things more affordable. But yeah, I think that's I'm happy to hear that.
There's a contribution from Pretty as well. She says, to answer the question on whether recycling is more expensive than producing new fabric, at the moment in today's landscape, because we're working on eliminating waste, it requires the right technology to ensure that the recycled products themselves don't end up as waste. So that is her contribution. And I think Mr. Josfat also says recycling may be expensive, but we can reduce the cost if we design all the products with circularity in mind. So those are our answers from our different panelists on whether recycling is better than producing with circularity in mind. There's a question here in that, what is the real challenge that prevents the African textile industry from establishing itself as a leader? And also, does the new African Continental Free Trade Area play a major role in the development of the textile industry, fashion business, and its circularity? What is the real challenge? For those of us that are, are working actively in this industry, what's the real challenge that we're facing, preventing us from establishing ourselves as a leader?
Do you want me to take a stab? So if I can speak from the South African context, I mean, when China joined the WTO, we lost so many jobs in the clothing and textile sector, and I think we've seen that in other African countries as well. There's been a loss of skills and jobs in the sector. Having said that, it's now coming back again. So there's a rebirth of the industry in countries like Kenya and Ethiopia, as people are now moving to de-risk from China. So it's fluid, but the short answer is, yeah, I think there's lack of skills. And in terms of the Africa Free Trade Agreement, my understanding of that is that the clothing and textile product categories were one of the sticking points in finalizing that agreement. And I actually tried to get an update before coming into this meeting just to understand that, because yes, I do believe it has a role to play, certainly in stopping the dumping of used clothing in Africa. Some countries have tried to push back, like Rwanda as an example, and they lost their AGOA status as a result of that. But I think if the continent can stand together and just to stop garments or used clothing being dumped, we might have more success in stopping the influx than countries trying to deal with it on their own.
Thank you very much. Are there additional comments on this from the rest of the panelists? The rest of the panelists and the rest of the participants, you can post your comments on this particular question in the chat, if you may. Okay, while the comments are rolling in, there's a question here for Esetu. There's a question regarding your targeted buyers, customers, and markets. Are brands also are all brands or only sustainable brands interested in your products? And how do you establish the relationship with these brands? Do you recycle all types of fabrics? So it's a two-part question. I think I'll ask the first part and you can answer it, and then I'll ask the second part of the question.
So thank you. With regards to the brands that we're seeing being interested on the end product, the recycled end product that we want to create, it's not just sustainable brands. Actually, a lot of the interest is coming from a lot of fast fashion brands that are looking to transition to becoming sustainable. A lot of fast fashion retailers. We do have interest from then traditionally sustainable retail brands locally. And then we're also looking, so primarily our focus would be to close the loop in the clothing industry. So taking waste from clothing manufacturers and then making recycled products for retailers. But there's also opportunity to sell recycled end products outside of the clothing industry. And so looking at industries such as hotels, taking their textile waste, making new bed linen for them, making new bed towels for them. And as I've mentioned, hospitals, cotton wool, similar as the hotel industry, can make new bed linen, uniforms, new garments, uniforms for the staff. And so, yeah, and then the furniture industry is another big industry, a lot more bigger actually than the clothing industry, where there is opportunity. We're also looking in terms of clients and off-takers of the end product in South Africa and the rest of the African continent, as well as in the EU, primarily because there's quite a lot of demand in the EU region for recycled products without the price sensitivity. However, we're currently actually speaking now to local retailers as well. And we've been able to create a few samples, and I like the conversation that's been happening around prices. We've been able to create a few samples that are cost competitive for our local market. And so we're looking to retail those in the South African market as well. And the other question was with regards to?
Sorry, I'm on mute. The other question was, do you recycle all types of, I think before I go there, Michelle, I saw your hand was up. Did you want to contribute to?
I think Pretty wanted to contribute.
Right. Pretty, do you want to contribute on this particular topic? You can go ahead.
Yes,
Radia?
I'm pretty sure now. Can everyone hear me?
Good. Yes, glad to finally hear you.
I'm so glad, finally. So just to answer the question of what the challenge is at the moment in the industry, I believe the challenge really is the lack of collaborative efforts when it comes to building and growing a sustainable textile industry in South Africa. So increased collaborative efforts between local entrepreneurs and various stakeholders across different sectors that are within the textile and fabric industries, as well as education. So education and awareness are a big thing, and just doing the best thing that we can do using technology as well. In being collaborative in our efforts, it will help quite a bit in circular activities and building sustainable value chains. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Pretty, is there something you wanted to add to that, Michelle?
Yes, if I can just respond to that. So there is in South Africa, we have a retail clothing, so it's a retail CTFL master plan. So it's essentially a master plan that's aimed specifically at creating jobs within the clothing, footwear, leather, textile sector within the value chain. So I think these conversations are great in understanding who the players are and how we can all start, connecting each other to the opportunities.
Yeah. And on opportunities, I think this is something that I'll ask towards the end. Let me just ask a second question. So do you recycle all types of fabric, or do you have specific ones? Also, they would like to know how you ensure the quality of recycled fabrics, because given the way some of the garments are designed, mostly it's hard for some fibers to be recycled into quality fabrics. Also, is it easy to deal with natural fibers blended with synthetic fibers during the sorting phase? How do you do it? Or do you just focus on single fiber garments? So those are about 3 questions.
Cool. It's a lot of questions. I'll try to remember all of them. So how we started, the easiest and the most efficient way for us to start was to start recycling with recycling textile waste and collecting textile waste that we were 100% sure could be recycled. In having been in the market and having learned a lot now, most textiles can actually be recycled. So for the past 2 years, we've been primarily focusing, as I mentioned, on pre-consumer textile waste, particularly natural fibers, denim, 100% polyester, and acrylic were kind of the textiles. Pretty much, yeah, that's what we've been collecting. As I've mentioned, we've now, after our travels and learning more about the value chain, going to other industries such as Turkey that are a lot more mature than ours, we've been able to realize that we can pretty much collect and recycle everything. Most textiles, except for maybe elastane, leather, those are the tricky ones that pretty much you normally can't do anything with. And so at this current point in time, or like what we're moving towards is to be able to also collect nylon, spandex, fabrics with blends as well can be made. The thing that determines what you collect is what end product are you creating. So there are product lines that can be created from fabric types such as synthetics, fiber blends. There are downcycled products or inferior type products that can be created from those. And then natural fibers, the nice thing about natural fibers and the fabric types that I mentioned at the beginning, they can be downcycled and upcycled into different products. But the real thing is about what product it is that you want to create. And so because we wanted to be necessarily in the space of creating recycled fabric and upcycled products, we've been focusing on collecting natural fibers, 100% polyester, acrylic, and so forth. But now we're increasing our scope. Hence, I was speaking earlier on about one of the values that we want to be able to give to clients is to be able to help them reach zero textile waste to landfill. And now moving forward, that's something that we'll be able to do. And then the quality of the fabric. So we mostly work with pre-consumer textile waste. Post-consumer textile waste is a little bit tricky, I think, as Alma has shown to work with. But so we've 90% of what we collect, I'd say, is post-consumer textile waste. But in the event that we have collected post-consumer textile waste, we are quite strict because of the difficulties that exist with post-consumer waste. We've been quite strict to only work with post-consumer that is of natural fibers, polycotton, 100% polyester, acrylic. So the fabric types that we're comfortable with and we know with. We haven't yet at this stage worked with post-consumer that's got spandex, elastane, and all sorts of fiber blends that we would not traditionally be able to recycle, just because of the cost and so forth that's involved with recycle such post-consumer. So yeah, I think moving forward locally, and it's come up in this conversation, it's a big challenge, and it's definitely something, it's a big barrier to us reaching zero textile waste to landfill, which is how to deal with post-consumer in an efficient way. But I think the fact that with my new knowing now, our new knowing of the fact that there are different product lines that can be created from most textile waste, I think that there is a solution that we could be able to find to deal with tricky post-consumer textile waste.
Thank you so much, Giuseppe, and I hope this answered most of the questions that were posed. I have a question here, I think, that relates to greenwashing. I think first part of it is that are there, in Africa, are there any sustainable online marketplaces? And this person says they are following some African brands and they see a lot of great and international ways to do fashion. So are there any sustainable online marketplaces? I think these are for the people that are involved in this. And then the second part is, are there any circular fashion people who have done analysis of their processes rather than, just talking about it? Is there anybody that has done analysis of their processes, the environmental impact from their processes, rather than just talking about reutilize the waste? Has there any research been done on material substitution and what best works within the life cycle of a particular product? They say this and relating it to greenwashing. Hello, Jackie May. I see your hand is up. You're on mute.
Mute, sorry about that. A great conversation, thank you. I was just, you said you were asking about a marketplace. We don't have a marketplace, but we publish an online magazine that's dedicated to sustainability with a major focus on fashion. And I mean, we don't really want to get into commerce because I don't think we don't want to get into the same sort of trap of selling and pushing product into the marketplace, but we're really all about showcasing circular and sustainable and responsible fashion. And I think there are a couple of platforms. I think that Plain Tiger is probably the best example. It's not South African as such, but it does showcase South African products. I mean, we use our Sustainable Fashion Awards, the Twig Sustainable Fashion Awards, as a way to bring these brands to the marketplace and to celebrate them and to showcase them and then to use them as examples. And at the moment, we're working with a standard, eco standard, to try and introduce a localized certification and assessment process, because people are looking to international certifications which aren't necessarily appropriate for local brands. And I think that's really, really important. You know, you look at products and they've got certifications that, you know, and they often sort of self-assessment processes that they go through, which I think, yeah, Jaeger is a very good one as well, pretty. And basically all the thrifting, I mean, all the wonderful thrifting platforms that have popped up, and multiple ones that, and the rental, I think the new rental services are also incredibly good in showcasing how a circular economy can work. I've got more to say, but I think that's enough from me. I've just been to Milan to see the Textile Expo, and I was blown away by some things, but I was also really, really surprised to see that the sustainable and recycled textiles are still not the main focus of an event like that, which is quite astonishing considering where we're at in the world at the moment. But thank you, and I'm going to have to jump off, but thank you everybody. It was a great conversation. I've got another meeting happening now. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Michelle, I saw you nodding your head. Did you want to speak to the online market? Yes.
Yeah. No. So Jackie has already responded to that, and she's mentioned Plain Tiger. I was going to respond to the second one about whether there are actual examples. So it's not, I mean, I'm using Velgatex again. I know that they're not a fashion, it's not fashion, it's carpets, but they certainly have done a lot of work in this space, and they've recently set science-based targets on the work that they're doing. So a company to look at.
All right, thank you very much. I saw your comment pretty there about IAGA. I'll go to Josephat on the last part there. Are there any on the part about research done? Is there research that has been done that can be shared on the different processes, rather than just talking about, oh, you can recycle the waste? Is there somewhere where somebody can go to find and something written with statistics and evidence on these different things? Thank you.
I didn't get your question very well, but definitely, if you Google circularity, you may get documents here and there. But specifically, UNEP is working on circularity in a very big way. And we hope to be releasing a lot of documents from the month of September, October, November. They'll be covering specific case studies whereby circularity has been where circularity is being practiced. So for now, I may not have any that I'm able to share with you, but if you Google, you will find a lot of other researchers that have been able to, let's say, report on that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we're going into our open discussion now, and I think, oh, yes, Pretty, before we jump into our open discussion.
I just wanted to add that as Slow Textiles, one of the things that we'll be doing, aside from recycling post-consumer products, will be to produce products from biomaterials. And this is something that I'm hoping to share with you as a case study in the next 2 to 3 years. And so I've shared a link here to a website, well, a brand called Peanutex, and they create leather from pineapple leaves. And that brand was one of the brands that inspired me to look at how sustainable is it really to produce fabric from orange peels and banana peels and the likes of the pineapple leaves. So a lot of research will be done on our end, and hopefully that we carry on these conversations, because this is one of the first, and we will need to carry on showing African examples with African with the African landscape in mind. And I hope that I'll be sharing this with you very soon. Thank you.
I'm very confident that you'll be sharing this with us soon, and excited for the wonderful work you are doing. Thank you very much. So there are a few questions that were not tackled within the Q&A, and so we're going into our open discussion where you can raise your hand and either give a contribution or ask a question that can be answered either by the panel or somebody that is within this discussion. So welcome to our open discussion. If anybody has questions, contributions, you're welcome to share them at this point.
Hi, Radia. So I actually have a question that came up to me now when Priti was talking about using bio-based materials to create textiles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great idea to use, let's call it waste, like the peels, the peels of I've seen mango peels and orange peels being used, but does anyone on the panel maybe have any comments on using hemp as textiles? Because I've been hearing a lot of good things about hemp textiles, but then my question is is it worth all the water and fertilizer and the using the land? Is it really worth it, or are we going in the wrong direction with hemp? Michelle, I see you got your hand up.
So I think Heidi can also probably contribute to this question, but my understanding is that hemp is illegal to grow in South Africa, and in a number of countries because of the protectionism that exists around cotton farming. But it's actually, as a fiber, it's actually more sustainable, and it requires less water and fertilizer and all of those other good things. But Heidi, correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead, Heidi. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm not exactly all made up for public consumption right now, so excuse me the lack of glamour. As far as the legality of it, Michelle, I actually can't comment from that point of view, I'll be honest. As far as the sustainability of hemp is concerned, then it's comparable to linen as a standard process, to be honest. So much is determined by how it's processed, so how it's retted, how it's spun, all of those things. So that they are quite comparable according to the studies that I've seen. So organically produced linen and organically produced hemp, the process of the fiber production is pretty similar. So the overall contribution towards greenhouse gases and sort of the effect of the process, pretty similar. Both of them are equally biodegradable. Hemp is, it's the flavor of the month, to be honest. And as far as its performance is concerned, it's nice enough frankly, I've been a little disappointed in the garment that I bought to try out, but you know, it's all a matter of taste, and you know, from that point of view. But it's a viable fiber. There's no reason why it can't have a life. The processing of it is somewhat different to the processing of cotton. So the spinning of the yarn, you would probably need to cottonize it, silly as it sounds, to be able to spin it on a cotton within a cotton spinning mill. So that's something to consider. That linen spinning and hemp spinning, the process is slightly different because the fiber itself behaves differently. So whether you'd be able to do it on existing systems or not, you'd probably have to have a word with the local spinners to see whether they'd be able to give that a shot. If you're going to start importing it, then you're sticking it on big ships, and they're, you know, crossing the ocean and pumping a whole pile of fuel into the system in the process. So once again, you might undo your carbon credits. But yeah, so that's just a thought on that count. I could wax lyrical on a whole herd of subjects that have been brought up today, but I'm not going to hog the floor, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Heidi. We would encourage you to, if we had the time, hopefully in our next webinar, you'll come back and share everything that you have. There's a comment in the chat about, thank you, sorry. So there's a comment in the chat from Ridwana saying, vegan alternatives to leather must be treated with caution. Currently, the widely available options are mostly petroleum-based. So this is, I think, to answer your comment or your question, Crystal, on hemp. All right, are there any more contributions, any more questions from our participants? All right, if there are none, I think I have a question. I have a question for, oh, there's a hand up there. Yes, please go ahead. Yes, Heidi.
Hi. Are you talking to me? I have my hand up too. Yes. Yeah, sorry, apologies for no video.
Yes.
I'm definitely not going to put the video on. It's one of those days. But I just wanted to throw it out there that it would be incredible if we could get manufacturing brands and fast fashion businesses to throw more money into developing recycling processes more efficiently. My earlier comment was that if production doesn't slow down, we literally just enter a cycle of continuous production, continuous recycling, but recycling is lagging behind. So you have the production machine still going on, and then you have the recyclers trying to like sort of, you know, race to the bottom, trying to get all this incredible waste that we have recycled. So it's not an efficient process if the tap doesn't close at some point. So if manufacturing, and it's very, very pie in the sky, but if manufacturing and big businesses could throw more money into developing these systems, then they have there's no problem in saying that we now have reached a point where fiber to fiber recycling it's a reality, it's available, it's widely available, it is scaled to a point where we now can produce again. It's not necessarily a question, but it's just a point. And if there are any you know, big brands on this webinar, I would love to have this conversation about how you could still make money, but slow down your production at the same time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any big brands on our call, or anybody that could contribute to Ridwana's point? Please feel free to share within the chat or raise your hand. I have a question, I think, to Pretty. A lot that has been said here, I think, also goes back to, it's not a one-man problem, or it's not a one region or one country problem. And I think I spoke earlier about involving the everyday person that actively contributes to this big problem what do you have to say, Pretty, about inclusivity and about, for lack of a better term, contextualizing a lot of this jargon, circularity jargon that we used, a lot of Eurocentric and westernized jargon. How can we make sure that this information reaches the everyday person?
Thank you for that, Radia. I hope you can hear me. So it's all about going back to basics, right? And inclusivity for me popped up when I thought, okay, there are so many businesses, given the fact that we are in a developing country, there will be a lot of people using pollution for profit, or rather cleaning up to make some extra cash, or taking secondhand clothing and reselling them to maintain their households. So if we were to think, how can we make communication less complicated, less jargon filled, but more about focusing on what the entrepreneurs are doing, or what the organizations currently involved in processing or exchanging waste. I think it's about going back to basics with education and simplifying terms, and so education, awareness, and simplifying things, as well as language. So at the moment, I know of a few countries that are introducing circularity to their cities, but they are paying attention to using the native languages of where those people are to communicate much better. And also storytelling, so using the media, social media, TV, stories, the film and the art industries, I think would play a huge role in this, in just reiterating the exercise of circularity and the opportunities that are in there through everyday stories that everyday people understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This has been such a very fruitful discussion for me. I'm involved in circularity, but in different aspects. So plastic waste management, I know quite a few things there. And so to listen to people that are actively working in the fashion and textile industry has been very educational for myself. And I hope it has been for everyone else on this call. I would like to hand over the discussion to Krista at this point, unless there are any more contributions from the panel. Oh, there we go.
There's a question from Heidi.
Oh, okay, great.
Hi there. I'm just going to lower.
I'm sorry, is it in the chat? Yes.
No problem. I was just asked by Tashma to pop on and have a bit of a chat, because I've been trying to get some handle. I'm based in Durban in South Africa, and just trying to get a handle on the amount of waste in our area from from post-consumer, but also pre-consumer textiles. And certainly it's becoming more and more evident that post-consumer is troublesome. And I've had inquiries from several companies who are busy with initial research in terms of alternative recycling methods as well, which are of great interest, but right now they're private company projects, so obviously nothing can be disclosed from that point of view. But there are things in work. It's always a chicken and egg issue, though, in that we need to have a huge volume of reliable supply to be able to make these research projects viable and make them commercially viable from an economic point of view. And to have it cost effective in any shape or form, we need to have the products as recyclable as possible, which obviously is often a huge challenge in itself. So designing for a view to either adjustment, mending, or recycling or upcycling in some shape or form is a fantastic way to go. And there are many ways that can be under discussion to encourage that. But also having the efficiency of collection, the efficiency of sorting, and all of those good things that, as many people were saying, or there was the great debate, is it cheaper, isn't it cheaper? And it is such a debate because there's so much that goes into it to recycle it, or, you know, and just the efficiency of either process has such an impact on the cost of doing so. So both ends are correct. The virgin material can be cheaper. The recycled material potentially could be cheaper, but as is the case with any recycled product, so much goes into the labor and logistics that it's so easy to tip it over onto the not cheaper anymore, and often more expensive, but the right thing to do. And then come the quality aspects, that as soon as you start taking those fibers out of the original product, do they still have the same integrity to be able to be a decent textile product at the end of the day? And often, sadly, they'll end up weaker, shorter, and you can only have so many fun products before you actually want a real quality one back again. So you have to return to virgin materials. So, and to speak to what one of the other ladies was saying earlier on, is the volume involved. Even if we say, hey, there's 20% recycled fiber in here, there's still 80% virgin fiber in there. And so that means 80% of what's coming in that product came from a virgin, you know, sort of source. So it, you know, at the risk of a horribly corny analogy, is how long is a piece of string? So it's, you know, it really does. So much depends on so much. It's just such a desperately complicated subject, but it's amazing to see how many people and how many really amazing brains are really applying themselves to this problem now as well. Because 4 or 5 years ago, I felt a bit of a lone voice shouting into the wilderness, and I still don't know whether anybody heard me, but it's really cool to see that there's just so much happening in this space now. It's really encouraging. So okay, that's my bit for now. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I think the community is growing, if not, yeah, it's growing. I think people are doing amazing work, and I actually enjoy that the problem is so big, because then a lot of people then can jump onto this problem to tackle it. A lot of green jobs will be, I do not like calling it green jobs, because I feel there's a bit of greenwashing going there, but a lot of employment and a lot of economic contribution will be caused by this humongous problem that we have. I think before we move on to the last bit of our discussion, I saw your hand up, Rania.
Yes, hi everyone. So I have a question actually for Heidi, and a comment. So you were talking that you were disappointed with the hemp fabric. Can you tell me more about like this experience? Was it the texture or the quality itself? Because I'd like to learn more about the fabric.
Yes, yes, both of those to answer that question. Okay. It just, you know, it didn't do what it said on the box, essentially. It was, oh, it's so soft, it's so vibrant in color, it's so silky, it's so all of this. And 2 washes down the line, it had faded like crazy. It was really rough in texture. It wasn't fabulously soft. You know, just those things. But if anything, I think it was an oversell, under-deliver. If the promise had been more realistic, then I could have bought it according to the promise, and that would have been all good. So it's just, hemp isn't a smooth, polished, necessarily type of fabric. But if you're looking for something, you know, sort of a bit more rustic in texture, it's great. So it's really just marketing it realistically and as the product it is, instead of trying to sell it into a space where it isn't. And it's not necessarily going to be a cotton replacement or even a linen replacement. It's hemp, so sell it as hemp and do it, you know, sort of have it as what it really is, as opposed to saying use it instead of this. You use it because it's, you know, a reasonable fiber in its own right, but not necessarily as, you know, sort of as a replacement of other fibers. You wouldn't sell wool as cotton. So don't try and sell hemp as something else either, you know, sort of sell it into the space that it should be. And it has other uses. It's not necessarily only a textile fiber. It can go into other stuff. It's being used extensively in building materials. I saw a post the other day that there's a 6-story building, I think it's 6 stories, going up in Cape Town, using hemp as the reinforcing fiber. So there's, you know, there's all kinds of other places it can go as well as apparel. So, you know, use it where it fits. Don't try and put a square peg into a round hole.
Yes, thank you. You also mentioned that like recycled fibers could either be expensive or not expensive. Do you have like any, you know, points or tips on how the cost could be reduced?
Economy of scale and be efficient. You know, it's not. I don't have a bunch of research figures to show you, Rania, I'm afraid. But it essentially is got to be serious industrial volumes, and it's got to be efficiently run, but that goes for any production process, as we know. So yeah, and as I say, there are a few laboratory scale projects in work that I'm aware of, but whether they'll grow to the point where they are economically viable or not is very much yet to be seen. So you know, they may or may not materialize, but on anything, it's volume.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rania, and thank you, Heidi. I think it goes back to our point of the language needs to be correct and truthful. There was a comment in the chat section. I think sell what you're selling, and I think telling the truth, especially in this fight that we're in, is quite important. I'm very, very conscious of time, and I'll hand back over to Crystal to close out the workshop for us. Thank you so much for sitting for these, is it 1.5 hours? I've lost track of time because of how insightful the discussion was. So over to you, Crystal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rhoda. Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. I was surprised when I saw the time is up. This was a really, really good session. Thank you, everyone. And thanks so much for the panelists that contributed, and everyone else that contributed to this fruitful discussion. And I really hope everyone got at least something out of the session, and some of the questions that you had coming to this session was answered. And also hope that the conversation doesn't stop here. Let's further this conversation and share what we've learned here. And as mentioned, the recording will be shared of this session afterwards, and a short summary document of the learnings and the conclusions that we came to in this session, with the aim to further the knowledge. As we said in the beginning, is one of ASEN's priorities, is to share knowledge. Also keep an eye out for our next workshop that will be happening on the 25th of August. So the next one will be on packaging, and we will send out communications regarding that. And then for anything else on World Circular Economy Forum, like you see on the slide, you can contact us at that WCF email address. So this includes anything regarding these workshops or the African studios, or anything regarding World Circular Economy Forum. And then lastly, after closing the session, you'll see a survey pop up with a few questions. It should only take you a minute to complete. If you can please give us some feedback. We would like to see what you as participants would like to see in future workshops that we will do. We'll really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And then if there's no other questions, I see everyone very active in the chat. Thank you very much for everyone that contributed so much. Without the panelists and the attendees, something like this cannot happen. So thank you very much for your time. And if there's no other questions, I will at this point close the meeting. So on behalf of the ASEN team, I would just like to thank everyone again for your attendance, and everything that you contributed. Yeah, and looking forward to seeing you in the future at our future workshops going forward. Goodbye and have a great day further. Thanks.